Well, I'm Kirk Cowman, and I am the lead pastor of St. Albert Alliance Church.
And my name is Britton Cowman, and I'm this guy's wife. So my oldest daughter is Alexandra, and she's 30 years old, and she lives in Calgary with her partner, Conrad. Conrad is a director, and Alexandra is a musician and actor. And then we have my son, Liam, and he is 23, and he lives in Vermilion with his wife, Rhiannon. He's a youth pastor there. Lastly, we have Emma, and she lives at home with us while she's finishing her 2 degrees, and she'll get married in May, and she is graduating from the University of Regina.
Yeah, so it really started for us 2 years ago. We were at a district workers retreat, and over a course of the first 24 hours, Jesus spoke to us both separately, but it was the same message, is that transition was coming in 2022. And when we came together and compared notes, it was very clear what was going on, and we didn't know what that meant. COVID hit 6 weeks later, and so we put that in our back pocket and didn't think a lot about it. We talked about it every so often, but nothing really happened, and then there were some transitions that happened in the church that we were leading at the time, and we thought, that was what this Jesus was talking about. It's these transitions, and it's not us. And then in March of 2022, I had a dream. And in that dream, I was working with a group of volunteers from the church that we were in, and we were rebuilding a house. And as we were doing it, I heard a voice say, "You're building a house you'll never live in." And I woke up the next morning, I drive Britton to work every day, and I said, "Honey, I had a dream," and I told her about it. Britton responded, "That's kind of interesting because I had a dream too." And in her dream, she was putting together a team, and she heard a voice that said, "You're putting together a team you'll never play on." And so that was when we knew the transition was involving us and not the people around us. Initially I was not attracted to St. Albert. But then, Jesus kind of said, "No, but I want you to look at this in a significant way." Part of our discernment was watching a service at the end of July online. And we watched Mike preach that day, and we loved the worship music. And afterwards, I remember saying to Britton, that felt like home. And little did we know that it was going to become that. And Jesus has just given us, as we've walked this journey of transition, because we've been through transition before, and transition is always disruptive. And this is disruptive transition, but He's given us more peace than we have ever experienced before. And so we have just felt Jesus leading us very clearly to St. Albert. And I think what has attracted us and made us feel like home is just we're swimming in the same stream, and we're going in the same direction. The stuff that Jeremy has led you so brilliantly in is the stuff that we've been leading in. And so it feels like we are kindred spirits, like we've always been together, and I think that's why it feels like we're home. As we've come and spent time here, the people are just so welcoming and loving, and I said to Britton that we've never been welcomed and loved in the way that we have here.
I see our way of living and our values and our culture expressed here in St. Albert already. Just by our short visit, it's just so wonderful to see the people being ministered in very practical ways through the hub and also through Sunday mornings. Like, kids love coming here, they're running through the door and wanting to know Jesus. And I think that what more could you ask for, right?
That's right.
Good people,
Yeah.
Good place. Lots of Jesus.
Around January 1, I do this thing where I just look back, what was in the year that passed, and what was good and what wasn't so good. And I was doing it recently, and Jesus just put a verse in my head, Isaiah 43:19, which says, "I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? I'm making paths in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." And I started to think about that verse and just reflect on it. And the context of that verse is really important. Before those verses, God's saying, I did this, and I did this, and I did this. I freed you from Egypt. I parted the water. I've defeated your enemies, all these things. And then in verse 18, He says, "But forget all that." And I'm like, forget all that? That was good stuff. And he says, forget all that. I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? And I think sometimes when we start to look back and reflect on a year that has been, we kind of dwell in it. And one of the translations does say, don't dwell on the past. And I think we need to celebrate the past and look towards the path ahead. And I think that's what Jesus is saying in that verse, is I'm doing a new thing. Do not perceive it. Celebrate the past and all the good things God has done, but then look to the path and where he's going, the path that he's making in a wilderness. And then the second part of that chapter talks about what he's going to do, how wild animals will praise him, while people who are far from him will celebrate who he is and proclaim his name. And it's like, as he does that, he says, I'm going to create a stream in the wasteland. And I love that, because often we compare the Spirit to water. And so when we think about it, we need to celebrate the past, focus on the path, but then look to the guide that's ahead of us. So as we enter a new year, hey, let's celebrate the past, because St. Albert Alliance Church has an amazing past. But let's not dwell in it. Let's look ahead to the path that God has for us, and the guide who Jesus says in John 16, the Spirit will show us when we step off the path. He will guide us back onto the path by reminding us of the words of Jesus, and then show us the hope or the future of where it's going. And I think in this year, let's celebrate the past, focus on the path, and follow the Spirit into the wasteland. It doesn't look like a wasteland around here. It doesn't look like a dry place, but spiritually, it's a wasteland. Spiritually, it's a dry place. And he's making a path for every single one of us to step into the mission that God has for us. He's making a stream, not just a stream, but a river. And we need to step into that. And I think that the best days of St. Albert Alliance Church are in front of us, not behind us. And when you think about what's behind us, that's a future, right? Incredibly great future as we celebrate the past, step into the path, and follow the Spirit as he guides.